She was struggling a lot with tantrums. They thought it was sensory processing disorder. And then when she was 4.5, she went to the gender clinic at Lurie Children's Hospital in Chicago. And, the doctor sat down and said, "Are you a girl?" And she said, "Yep." And he's like, "Okay, from now on, you're a girl."
When you get to the gender clinic, what does the specialist actually do? Well, they ask you questions, of course. We lie! Or not even necessarily lie, but just we tell them what they want to hear.
All you Karens out there who have your panties in a bunch about the fact that doctors are starting to use the term pregnant person instead of pregnant women, I want you to listen up. Non-binary people and trans men are also people.
What I started doing was I would look online and I would say, I'm really uncomfortable with myself, with my body, with my femininity. And I came across these videos of other teenage girls talking about how they were also extremely uncomfortable in their bodies.
Hello, my beautiful people. Welcome back to my channel. You guys, today we're going to talk about how the medical professional world has completely failed today's youth. It seems like medical professionals today are more concerned with being activists than actually treating patients. It's getting really bad out here. That intro was just a little snippet of what is happening in the medical professional world today and how pediatricians are literally pushing children into the direction of gender ideology and transitioning as young as 2 years old. It should be a crime. I said it. So I want to talk about how just because a child is dealing with confusion and trauma and all types of anguish doesn't necessarily mean that the fix is bodily harm or mutilation or hormone therapy or social transitioning. All of these things, in my opinion, are extremely harmful for children. I've said this before and I will say it again and again and again. Only 2% of the population struggles with gender dysphoria, a disorder. Used to be called a mental disorder, now it's just a disorder. Only 2%. Yet when you look around, all of these kids, as young as 2 all the way up to high school, are struggling with their gender identity, not knowing who or what they are, hating their body so much, and just looking for affirmation, for somebody up above to tell them it's okay. You can mutilate yourself. You can change yourself. You hate yourself? You hate your identity? I got just a fix for you. How about we just change your body? How about we just change your entire identity? How about instead of being a girl, you're now a boy? We're a boy, now you're a girl. Don't want breasts anymore? We'll take them off. Don't want a penis? We'll chop it off. I mean, it's become that easy nowadays. That easy. And all you have to do is go to a gender clinic or go to a Planned Parenthood or go to a pediatrician and tell them, I want to transition. I don't like myself. I don't like my body. I think I have dysphoria. I need help. And literally within hours, that doctor is affirming your condition that fast. It's got to make you wonder what's really going on here. Why are these doctors so fixated on affirming patients as opposed to treating patients, which is what doctors were supposed to be doing? What's really going on? Let's deep dive.
Gender-affirming care can take on many different forms, from making a person feel respected by others, to medical treatments to match a person's physical state with the gender that they identify with. Now, at a fundamental level, let's talk about what gender-affirming care is, okay? And it involves the affirming, which of course that's where it gets the name from, of a person's gender identity, and creating a safe space for them to explore how they may want to express their gender.
Gender-affirming care is age-appropriate care that is medically necessary for the well-being of many transgender and non-binary people.
Every major medical and mental health organization says that it is medically necessary to support people in affirming their gender identity.
Puberty blockers are powerful hormones. They act on a small gland in the brain called the pituitary, and this controls the sex organs. For example, testicles make testosterone, ovaries make estrogen, and the pituitary controls that happening. Now, these blockers stop this action, and then whereas, say, a girl is in age 9 and continuing or beginning to develop in puberty and should continue on until a full adult woman, it's stopped. Once you stop it, there are various harms and problems that occur afterwards. Unfortunately, many of our professional organizations are advocating for this, including Endocrine Society. And it's important to bear in mind that there's very small groups of people controlling these societies. Small groups of people are making these pronouncements, and then when physicians want to turn to what's the best practice, they're finding these things. And there's no rigorous research done, there's no controlled studies. It's very poor research, but it's, I guess, politically correct to go down these roads by these organizations. Doctors will feel compelled to follow what their organization says without really looking into the evidence necessarily.
Earlier today, just a few minutes ago, our colleagues on the left said that we didn't know what we were talking about. So when presented with a video that details exactly what it means to conduct surgery on a minor for gender-affirming surgery, they left the room. They don't want the facts.
So I wanted to show you guys a compilation of what some of these gender-affirming care doctors, what their ideology is. Because I think it's very important to understand that the reason why this has completely gone or spiraled out of control, in my opinion, is because you have these doctors who are more concerned, like I said in the beginning, with affirming a person's disability mentally wise versus treating the actual disability, which is what we used to do in our country and in our society. And now it's taboo. It's taboo to even reference gender dysphoria as a disorder. That's taboo. You can't say that anymore. Even though that's exactly what it is. Let's keep it real. Okay, we can't use the term mental disorder anymore or mental disease, but it is a disorder. It is. And the fact that you have these doctors who are more concerned with making sure that they are politically correct with how they speak and they're walking on eggshells, fearful of saying the wrong thing, is a problem. See, because when I go to a doctor's office and I have an issue, I'm not looking for my doctor to say, whatever you want, Chuck. What do you feel? What do you think? What do you want? And I'll just write you a prescription. No, I want you to look at me, see the problem, diagnose it, and then give me a treatment plan. That's how treatment used to work in medicine. Now it's not so much. Now it's, let's put them on puberty blockers and we'll see what happens. And as you saw from one of the clips, you had the gentleman that's speaking and he's saying, look, like a lot of these doctors, they can't speak up. They can't say this isn't in the best practice or this isn't what I feel is best for this patient, because if they do, they get in trouble because these larger organizations, these medical groups are the ones controlling the narrative. They're the ones that are telling the physicians, you must think this way, you must speak this way, you must treat this way or get out. And these doctors are pretty much trying to figure out, okay, what do? Do I go with my morals and what I know is right, or do I just affirm and co-sign and collect a check? Because make no mistake about it, these gender-affirming doctors and pediatricians are collecting a lot of money from these patients, whether it be for the treatment, whether it be for the puberty blockers, as far as the medicine, or actual surgeries. There is a lot of money to be made. I actually made a video a couple of months back exposing just how much these doctors make and what their incentive is in affirming these patients. I don't believe for a second that these doctors truly believe that what they're doing is right or that what they're doing is actually helping their patient. They're in the business of money, unfortunately. And at the end of the day, it's about how much money are we bringing in to this office. Forget about your morality. Check it at the door. This is a business. I'm going to show you guys a clip, just a brief clip that Matt Walsh had done a couple of months back, exposing a doctor who was speaking at a conference to other doctors, letting them know just how much money is in gender affirming care and how lucrative it is to affirm this condition.
So in 2018, Vanderbilt opened its Transgender Health Center. There was an article published in the Tennessean at the time that announced the new clinic, quoting its medical director, Dr. Shane Taylor, who said that the goal was to, quote, meet our patients where they are in their journey and help them with the resources they need. Dr. Taylor was a bit more detailed in explaining the hospital's actual motivations for expanding into quote-unquote transgender care.
In October of 2016, starting a couple of years ago, put down some costs of how much money we think each patient would bring in. And this is only including top surgery. This isn't including any bottom surgery. And it's a lot of money. These surgeries make a lot of money. So female to male chest reconstruction can bring in $40,000. A patient just on routine hormone treatment, who I'm only seeing a few times a year, can bring in several $1,000 because that requires a lot of visits and labs. It actually makes money for the hospital. I just want to give you an idea of how much these bottom surgeries are making. And I think this has to be an underestimate. This is for a vaginoplasty. they're saying they're quoting roughly around $20,000 for a vaginoplasty, but that doesn't include your hospital stay, that doesn't include your post-op visits, that doesn't include your anesthesia, your OR. So I would think that this has to be a gross underestimate. I think that's just like the surgeon's piece of it, which anybody who's ever been in the hospital knows that that's like 10% of it. And then the female to male bottom surgeries, these are huge money makers. Again, I think this has to be an underestimate that they're quoting around $20,000 for a phalloplasty. There's been different things that I've read that said it could be up to $100,000. Dr. Winokur, who's our surgeon, says that there's entire clinics where the entire clinic is supported just by their phalloplasties, and that is like a fraction of the surgeries that they're doing. These surgeries are labor intensive, they require a lot of follow-ups, they require a lot of OR time, and they make money. They make money for the hospital.
Do you see how she is literally listing off the different surgeries as if it's a checklist, a grocery store checklist? Like, we got our bread, we got our butter, we got our milk, we got our cream, like, and it's all here. It's all here. Wow. It's a business, folks. It is a business. And if you think that these doctors are going to just stop affirming patients, which translates as less money for the practices, think again. So when I hear trans activists say, oh, well, all of these medical organizations agree gender affirming care is A, B, and C, they all are in agreement. Yeah, of course they are. Because there is money to be made in the pharmaceutical business of affirming care. Trust and believe. With every person that is in that structure, there is money to be made. And if you think that is not a driving force as to why all of a sudden this change of heart has happened in the medical professional business, think again. And unfortunately, these young people are the guinea pigs. They're the ones that are the sacrificial lambs, being put on puberty blockers, not knowing the full effects of what's going to happen 20 years down the line. Or that female that had a mastectomy at 17 years old and then realizes by 20 she made a mistake, but guess what? She has no breast. We're talking about mutilation here. We're talking about irreversible surgeries. Take a look at this article from a person who is detransitioning now, who was a female, wanted to be male, and then is now going back to being female, and what she went through when it came to self-mutilation and affirmation from physicians. Her post is entitled, "I really miss my breast." I hated my breasts ever since they first started developing. When I was a teenager, my breasts were so big that I had to shop at specialty bra shops. I got so much attention for having large breasts, and I despised it at the time. I always said I wanted a breast reduction, and at one point I even tried to cut off my breasts with razor blades. My family knew all about this, and that is why they pressured me into having a double mastectomy at age 16. I didn't think I was ready to have such a major surgery at that point, but my mother convinced me that it needed to happen. After the surgery, I was honestly kind of relieved not to have breasts anymore. It was like the pain my breast had caused me was completely gone. However, I soon started to miss my breast. I realized that they were a part of what made me beautiful, and I currently feel uglier than ever. The only person who knows I feel this way is my therapist, but I wish I could tell my family. I've considered saving up for breast implants, but I'm not really out as a detransitioner, and I know that breast implants wouldn't be the same as what I used to have. I would say I made a mistake, but none of my medical transition was my choice. I was pressured and manipulated into medical transition by my mother. Even my therapist tried to tell my mother at the time that I wasn't ready for any of this, but my mother was and is still convinced that my transition was the best thing to ever happen to me. And she was so wrong about that. How do I deal with this? I've said it before and I'll say it again. I don't care if one person regrets the surgery. That's one too many. And in my opinion, there is not a big enough barrier to ensure that before you get to that step, that person is mentally stable to handle this transition. I've seen way too many stories of people who have openly said, listen, we say what we have to say to get what we need. We tell the medical professionals what they want to hear so we can get our hormones, so we can get our surgeries, so we can get what we want in the moment. Forget about the future, it's about the now. And these physicians are all too ready to fill up that prescription.
When you get to the gender clinic, what does the specialist actually do? Well, they ask you questions, of course. This person, who has the power to decide what the rest of your life will look like, asks you questions to make sure that your answers fit the ones they have in their textbook. And can you guess what the problem is? We lie! We tell them what they want to hear. There's a documented history of trans people doing this since at least the 1950s, and we're still doing it. A 2015 study found that about 30% of trans respondents admitted to lying or withholding information during their NHS gender assessments, because of course we do. If you wait several years for that appointment and you finally get in the room with a person who has your life in their hands, a person who is almost certainly cis, and they ask you, so, when did you know? Of course you're going to say, oh, ever since I was a child. Yeah, I wore my mother's dress. I called myself Wendy. Like, all I want is to be a 1950s housewife and marry a man. Of course you're going to say that.
At the age of 2, she was already telling us, I'm not a boy, I'm a girl. You'd be like, oh, you're such a cute little boy. Nope, I'm not a boy, I'm a girl. And then when she was 4.5, she went to the gender clinic at Lurie Children's Hospital in Chicago. And, you know, the doctor sat down and said, are you a girl? And she said, yep. And he's like, okay, from now on, you're a girl. And it was like a light switch. It went from this really hard toddler trying to get her to navigate the world and put on clothes and tantruming to the easiest kid ever.
Do you remember when you realized you were a girl?
No. How do you feel about having a penis?
Grumpy.
Grumpy? What do you wish would happen?
Just magically, vagina comes.
Yeah, that would be so nice.
It's wrong having a penis in you, girl.
It's wrong to have a penis if you're a girl? Mm-hmm. Yeah, it doesn't make sense, huh? It's kind of like a birth defect. Let me see
this. It is a birth defect.
Mm-hmm. Let me see this.
So I know that was hard to watch, but I wanted to show you guys a compilation of what happens when a child has a woke parent. A parent who has an agenda and wanting to see their child live out the path that they want for them, not the path that they're supposed to have. As you heard from the first story of the young girl who had a mastectomy, and her mom was the one that was pushing her to have the mastectomy. Her mom was the one who wanted her to transition for whatever reason. Something within the mom, it made her happy to see her daughter turn into her son. And her daughter inadvertently decided to live out her life in the earlier years, trying to live up to what her mother wanted. Want a boy? I'll be a boy. And now look at the effects. Then you have a biological woman who identifies as a man, shocked that her son wants to be trans as well. I mean, it's real shocking when a child is living under the realm of transness and gender ideology being shoved down their throat 24/7, seeing it everywhere in front of their face, and it's a shock that your child is now emulating you, is trying to be just like you, is now confused about their own gender as well. You don't think there's a correlation between you being trans and now your child at 2 and 3 years old being trans? I'm sorry, but instead of taking that child to a gender clinic, I think we should be taking you to CPS. And I'm going to just go on a limb and say that that child is probably on hormone therapy, puberty blockers, and God knows what else. And we're sitting here shocked. Then you have the last woman that I showed. I posted this story on my TikTok and also here on YouTube in my shorts of a mother who is literally telling her son, her trans-identifying male son, that his anatomy is a birth defect. And if you notice, the child isn't saying these things as statements. They're almost asking the mom for affirmation on these feelings. It's wrong to be a girl in a boy's body, right, Mom? It's wrong to have a penis, right, Mom? It's a defect, right, Mom? And there she is as she's painting his nails. Yes, sweetheart, yes. It's a defect. You were born in the wrong body. That type of woke parenting is going to have an extreme effect on these children. And it's sad because these kids are fulfilling their parents' ideology, and then they come of age and they realize, wait a minute, I've been on hormones for 8 years. I've had mutilation surgery on myself, and I think I made a mistake. And they can't run to their woke parent and tell them, I made a mistake. You made a mistake, because now that's going to be way too much drama and way too much emotional distress. So what happens? What we saw from the first story. The woman who literally is hiding how she feels and only telling her therapist because she's scared to tell her mother who pushed her to have a mastectomy. I have a feeling that young boy who may get mutilated at some point in life may regret it as well. And he'll have his mom, his co-signing woke mother, to blame. This is out of control, you guys. And I also love the transparency of the trans individual who was talking and saying, look, when a trans person wants certain medication or they want affirmation, they are going to say what they have to say to make sure that you as a doctor believe them. It doesn't matter what it is. They know the script. And the doctors also know the script. But guess what? They don't care. Say what I need you to say so I can write this prescription so my medical office can make some money. It's a sick, twisted cycle. And we're talking about human lives. We're talking about human lives, many of whom are minors, who won't see these effects until about 20 years from now. Mark my words.
My name is Chloe Cole, and I am a detransitioner. Another way to put that would be, I used to believe that I was born in the wrong body, and the adults in my life whom I trusted affirmed my belief, and this caused me lifelong, irreversible harm. I speak to you today as a victim of one of the biggest medical scandals in the history of the United States of America. I speak to you in the hope that you will have the courage to bring the scandal to an end and ensure that other vulnerable teenagers, children, and young adults don't go through what I went through. At the age of 12, I began to experience what my medical team would later diagnose as gender dysphoria. I was well into an early puberty, and I was very uncomfortable with the changes that were happening to my body. I was intimidated by male attention, and when I told my parents that I felt like a boy, in retrospect, all I meant was that I hated puberty, that I wanted this newfound sexual attention to go away, that I looked up to my brothers a little bit more than I did to my sisters. I came out as transgender in a letter I sent on the dining room table. My parents were immediately concerned. They felt like they needed to get outside help from medical professionals, but this proved to be a mistake. It immediately set our entire family down a path of ideologically motivated deceit and coercion. The gender specialist I was taken to see told my parents that I needed to be put on puberty-blocking drugs right away. They asked my parents a simple question: would you rather have a dead daughter or a living transgender son? The choice was enough for my parents to let their guard down, and in retrospect, I can't blame them. This was the moment that we all became victims of so-called gender-affirming care. Today, I should be at home with my family celebrating my 19th birthday, and instead I'm making a desperate plea to my elected representatives. Learn the lessons from other medical scandals like the opioid crisis, to recognize that doctors are human too, and sometimes they are wrong.
I also grew up as a tomboy, just like all of these girls I'm seeing on social media. I want to be as happy as they are, so I should start transitioning. And when I went to them, I expected that they were gonna tell me, you need a therapist before we can start you on anything, because that was required in Massachusetts. But instead, when I went into the gender clinic, they were able to set me up with one of their in-office clinicians, and she signed off on medical intervention without me ever needing to see a therapist. It was just a 45-minute appointment. During the second surgery, the emergency surgery, he was able to fix his mistake, and I had 3 blood transfusions and made a full recovery after that. But if they didn't find that in time, if they didn't keep me overnight, if they weren't as vigilant as they were, I definitely would have died. I was already losing consciousness. My organs would have just started shutting down not soon after that. You know, the doctors are cutting us open, and we're just trusting that they can put us back together. Now, I learned the hard way, if a doctor's cutting you open in a vain attempt to change your sex, probably don't trust that he can put you back together after.
I started the estrogen when I was 16, lived that way until really a couple of months ago, 2 months ago. And then I got my surgery at 19, my castration. I was expecting it to help my mental health. And it didn't do anything. I just wasted so much time. And all I did really was become a medical patient for life.
You know, as hard as it is to watch and to listen to those stories, those heartbreaking stories, they're so important because what it shows is there is another side. There is something else at the end of all of this. There can be the light at the end of that tunnel. And it's sad that it takes surgery and it takes the mental anguish and the emotional distress to get people to that place. But here they are, telling their stories, warning people, warning parents, don't do this. Don't transition your child as a minor. You're not doing them any service. You're doing them a disservice by doing this. Your child may have something else going on with them, and these doctors are pushing you and your child to have this surgery because it is lucrative for them. But think about the mental health of your child. Look at their stories. They're laying it all out. They've been there. They've had the surgeries. They've gone through the hormone therapy. They're now detransitioning, realizing they made a mistake. They were misdiagnosed. And it's happening more and more. Like I said, only 2% of the population identifies as having gender dysphoria, yet the numbers keep climbing and climbing and climbing for this younger generation, who to me are more susceptible to this diagnosis because there's an agenda attached to it. And as sad as it is, I'm glad that these detransitioners are telling their story. If you have a child out there that is struggling with this disorder, please, 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 please do not run to a gender affirming clinic or a gender affirming physician or a gender affirming pediatrician. Don't do it, because they're going to tell you what they think you want to hear. This is still a relatively very new procedure, a very new thing in the medical professional world. And unfortunately, your kids are the guinea pigs. Don't bury your heads in the sand. Speak up and speak out. Your voice, it matters. Make sure your vote also matters, because trust and believe there are politicians out there who are fighting against this agenda, including this guy.
The left-wing gender insanity being pushed on our children is an act of child abuse. Very simple. Here's my plan to stop the chemical, physical, and emotional mutilation of our youth. On day one, I will revoke Joe Biden's cruel policies on so-called gender-affirming care. Ridiculous. A process that includes giving kids puberty blockers, mutating their physical appearance, and ultimately performing surgery on minor children. Can you believe this? I will sign a new executive order instructing every federal agency to cease all programs that promote the concept of sex and gender transition at any age.
Now, most of you guys know my story. You know that I used to be a liberal. I did not vote for Donald Trump either time, but trust and believe with what he's saying right now, that is the most important message. The most important message. And I hope that more politicians take suit. And trust and believe he'll be getting my vote if he truly is going to be fighting against this agenda. If you enjoy my content, please do not forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Don't forget to hit my notification bell so you know when I post a brand new video. If you guys want to connect with me on other platforms, I'm also available on TikTok and on Instagram under CurlyBoyChuck. And if you want to support my channel financially, I'm going to have my PayPal as well as my Cash App link in my description. All proceeds will go back into this channel so that I can keep doing what I'm doing. Until next time, peace.